All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of What Drives You. We're glad to have you here today. I'm your co-host, Stan Winhorn. With me, as always, my good buddy, Carl Bauer. Carl, what part of the country are you in right now, Carl? You're in Vegas or
T-
something, aren't you?
yeah, today I did a little and it was confusing. Sorry, Jack, we'll get to you one second. I was in Vegas, then I was in St. George, so time zone, and then I was back to Vegas. So my time zones are a little bit mixed up, but I'm super interested to hear our new friends'
Yeah.
story and adventures and all that. So welcome,
Yeah,
Jack.
so just to give everybody a chance to understand who our guest is today, I met an old friend of his a few days ago, and somehow we started talking about skydiving, and she had told me about Jack and his skydiving career. So we want to welcome to What Drives You, Jack Brady. Jack, thank you so much for taking time to do this with us today.
Absolutely. Stan, Carl, thank you guys for having me. Excited for the conversation today.
So it sounds like we got to do this fairly quickly. Did you say you were going to the drop zone today?
That's right. I got some afternoon jump plans, meeting up with a couple friends out at Lake Elsinore, get some wingsuit skydiving in. But I got plenty of time for you guys, so I'm excited about it.
Well, cool, man. Well, just to kind of bring everybody up to speed, I got pretty heavy into skydiving. Well, I was still very much a beginner by skydiving rules, but to the average person, I excuse me, I got my A license and I did a total of I think 48 jumps, which is more than the average citizen out there, but that's still very much a beginner in skydiving. So Jack, how long ago did you start jumping out of planes?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about that this morning. It's coming up on 10 years. It would have been 2016 when I did my very first AFF skydive out in Colorado. And yeah, it'll be 10 years this fall. And yeah, it's been a wild ride, about 700 jumps since then, uh,
Nice.
and counting. So I'm continuing to get as many as I can each year, having a lot of fun with it, building on new skills and creating long-term friendships, relationships, building the community out here. And so I absolutely love doing it.
Well, that was one of the things that impressed me the most, is the skydiving community.
Yeah.
I really got the feeling that it didn't matter if it was your first jump or if you were an experienced skydiver. Just the fact that you're at that drop zone and willing to do it, you're a member of the club. And I always found that people really treated me that way. Do you kind of see that with the skydiving community too?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's an incredible community that is just stoked on life and we're stoked on life and jump in and we love people who are interested and it carries over to me being just as excited to have this conversation with you guys today and you guys expressing an interest in it. Anyone who comes to our drop zones and wants to get into skydiving, all of my friends, everyone I know is always so stoked to get them involved answering questions, helping them along the path. It's definitely a very inviting community and creates a lower barrier to entry and can be a little less daunting than most people realize. You'll have plenty of friends and resources to help you throughout the way.
Yeah, one of the things that I really noticed too is they're a fun group of people. There's a lot of joking and stuff going on, but everybody that I noticed, they're always looking out for each other, like for safety reasons. You
Totally.
know, they may joke around with you a little bit, but they're gonna make sure that your pin's in place
Yep.
and you know what you're doing. I mean, they really take care of one another at these drop zones.
Yep, 100%. We're all looking out for each other. We all, want to continue building the community and creating a safe atmosphere, which gets more people invited to join our community. So we're always looking out passively and intentionally too. Even on the plane ride up, you're pretty compact in there with 20 people sitting right next to each other, but you'll see eyes wandering, checking each other's gear, doing gear checks before we board the plane as well. And yeah, we're all looking out for each other, especially the newer jumpers. We want to make sure that they have, the right path and support system around them to feel comfortable to continue jumping. So yeah, it's a great community.
Hey,
So
Jack.
I had, oh, go ahead, Carl.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask, let me ask some layman questions since you two
Yeah.
are much more experienced than me. So, from the guys that we most of the world sees on Red Bull who are like thumbs up, jumping out backwards, in shorts and flip flops. Like, what does it take to go from, not connected to a cable
Yeah.
or up, dual jumping? What does it take to get there? Maybe we can back up just like, okay, you got to do three
Yeah.
static jumps and give us the lay of the land. And then I want to talk a little bit more about Lake Elsinore.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great starting point, and Stan even touched on it. Like 48 jumps is a ton of jumps, like for most people. And, compared to 700, it's not very many, which is what I have. And then you compare my 700 to the legends in the sport, the Red Bull athletes. I've met some legends with over 30,000 jumps. So it's all relative and it's all crazy to see the progression process throughout. I'll say the initial starting period is usually a 7 or 8 jump process called an accelerated free fall program. So that's how your first entry jumps, you're jumping out with 1 to 2 instructors right next to you. You're on your own parachute system, but they're right there in the air with you and making sure you're comfortable pre-jump, during the jump, and then going through the recap afterwards. And AFF is about 8 jumps. And then from there, 8 to 25 jumps is more repetition, coaching jumps, learning new skills as far as tracking. Obviously, canopy skills is very important as well, making sure you can land comfortably. So yeah, 25 jumps, you're licensed, and then you really hit the ground running from there. You build up you start with your A license. At 50 jumps, you hit your B license. At 200 jumps, you hit your C license. At 500 jumps, you hit your D license. And so after 500, that's kind of where it takes off into more specialized groupings, whether you get, a tandem rating to get into the skydiving industry. AFF instructors, you can even go the demo jump route and jumping into stadiums and stuff like that. So it really just accelerates and takes off from there, depending on the specific area of skydiving you want to work at. Uh, Me personally, I've really gotten into wingsuiting a lot lately, and that has become a very popular path for a lot of skydivers nowadays. Once you hit 200 jumps or so, they decide to throw a straight jacket on you and push you out of a plane and try to glide down before opening up the parachute. And it's a whole new skill set, a lot of fun to learn. But that's, yeah, a really fun progression path, learning with a lot of friends right now.
I want to talk more about that, but wingsuits weren't even a thing when I was jumping. In fact, this will tell you how long ago I was jumping, is it went I forgot what they called it back then. In fact, the guy that I bought my first rig from was a very well-established skydiver. What did they call it? Freestyle or something where they would do the acrobatics and it was a team
Yeah,
thing between them and the cameraman. And then
right.
shortly after I met him is when the basically the equivalent of a snowboard uh where
Yeah,
people were jumping out with the boards on their feet,
yeah.
and that really kind of took the place of the other acrobatics. Man, I can't
Right.
remember the names of all this stuff. Maybe you can
So,
refresh my
yeah,
memory.
yeah. The first one I think you're talking about is free flying. And that
Free
is
flying.
like, yeah, just moving your body in a different way. Traditionally, with the skydive, you fall belly to earth, and that's
Hmm.
about 125 miles per hour or so. As you reduce the surface area, so say you go standing up, you fall faster. And so, less input, or, the smaller amount of inputs will create a bigger movement in the air. And so it does become a fun team sport to try to um, all free fly together. And honestly, I look at it as like synchronized swimming in the sky. That's basically
Yeah.
what it's like, a dance or routine up there, and there is competitions and fun stuff like that. And then as you touched on the skyboards, those were really cool for a short period of time. They gained a lot of momentum, and they're not as popular anymore, but definitely part of what got me into skydiving was watching some of those videos. Yeah, jumping out of planes with what it looks like a snowboard on your feet, and using that
Yeah.
as now your, surface area, and kind of manipulating the wind around that to travel throughout the air while flying. So that's another really
Yeah.
cool sport or niche within skydiving that I definitely intend to get into some point.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this is going to date me too, but when I was doing it, there was no such thing as a GoPro yet.
Right.
So the videographers, they literally had a fairly small, but a regular video camera strapped to their head and this little eyepiece. And I always marveled at how good they were at being able to capture that. I personally learned a lot more from reviewing my videotapes than I did during the, 60 seconds or so of free falling. You can really see, okay, I was not arching enough, or my legs were too extended or too curled. Just so you know, Carl, there's the 8 levels that he's talking about. Each level you're is designed to teach you flying skills, basically. So the first level is basically just about altitude awareness, making sure you know where you are in that sky, because altitude is your friend, and you know where how to deploy your canopy. And then there's flying skills so that you learn forwards and backwards, up and down, and turning. And those are the skills that you got to go through before you can basically start jumping out of the plane yourselves. But man, maybe it's changed, but I got my A license after I passed my 8 levels. I don't know that we had to do 25 jumps to get an A license back then, but maybe things have
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah, it might have changed for sure. It's definitely changed a lot over the years. The safety equipment, I mean, the integration of the three-ring system back in the 90s has helped make the sport a lot safer, and that basically
Yep.
allows for a clean cutaway of your main parachute, and then your reserve parachute can open up without, the possibility of really getting tangled with that current parachute that you've decided isn't going to be the one you want to land with. And then, as you mentioned, GoPros, like video recordings, that's definitely a huge part of skydiving and your progression is being able to look back on the footage, just like watching game tape with any other sport. You want to see actually like the way your body was moving, the way you thought it was moving in your head, and then you can
Yeah.
make adjustments based off of that. So that's a key area of the bit of the sport that I think has allowed for a lot faster and safer progressions to be able to do, GoPro video recaps with your instructor mentor to see, did it play out the way you think it played out in your head, and then specifically making the changes on the next jump based off of what you saw.
Yeah, I agree with you. So did you do a tandem for your first jump, Jack?
Yeah, that's a
Most people do.
I didn't. Yeah, and most people do. I still haven't done a tandem. Man, I gotta tell you, I always knew I wanted to get into skydiving. It was like from a young age. I'm 30 years old right now, so early 2000s was like the upbringing of Red Bull, Nitro Circus. Like you started seeing a lot more YouTube videos and promotional stuff within the world of skydiving and air sports in general. So I was like their target audience as a, new web user on YouTube, checking out these videos all the time. And so from a very young age, I knew I wanted to get into skydiving. I jumped for the first time when I was in college at Colorado State University at Mile High Skydiving. Really big drop zone, definitely one of the biggest in the country, runs a great operation out of there and a great learning student program there. I went, just Googled it, knocked on their door. I didn't know anyone within skydiving. They recommended doing a tandem. I was a broke college student at that time, and I knew I wanted to get into it. And the tandem jump wasn't going to go towards that, A license for or the
Right.
AFF program. And so I wasn't at a point where I was ready to spend the $200-300 on a tandem jump that wasn't heading towards the direction I wanted to. So I did an
Yeah.
8-hour ground school course with the instructor there, and I was the only student that signed up for that day. So it was one-on-one, and he was another old school skydiver who gave me a lot of great advice, went through all the, possible scenarios, if there are any malfunctions and how to deal with them. And at the end of the day, he reiterated like you can start with the tandem if you would want. But I was able to jump and do my first AFF jump with two instructors right
Right.
next to me. I had my own parachute system. So actually, like the first skydive, the scary part wasn't so much the free fall. As we're jumping out of the plane, the two instructors are holding onto your shoulders and legs on both sides of you when you're jumping out, up until you pull the parachute, and they're hanging on to you that whole time. So the first jump, free fall, wasn't that scary. They saw me do practice touches on my pilot chute. And then when I pulled my parachute, they keep dropping. they go another 1,000, 2,000 feet before they pull their parachutes. And that was the scary part, being under canopy. Was like, there goes my instructors. I see them continue fall to the earth. I'm still 5,000 feet up in the air, and now I gotta like relook at these handles and make sure I can fly the parachute the correct way. And there is a radio, and once they got to the ground, they would be in communication with me through a radio, but I still had another 20, 30 seconds before they were actually on the ground and able to respond to me. So I remember
Yeah,
being in free fall, opening up my parachute, seeing my instructors continue falling to the earth and being like, okay, now this is where it gets real. Now I gotta release the toggles, take some turns, understand my inputs and how they adjust the canopy. And it was, yeah, an exhilarating experience. I'm glad I did it the way that I did. Again, nothing but um, great reviews from the Mile High skydiving instructors and course there. They really know how to set
yeah.
you up for success.
Well, you and I had a similar experience, only I went with a bunch of friends. They all wanted to do it, and they're all in line to do tandems. And then and this may have changed too, but there was a little sign on the desk that said if you were over 200 pounds, you were too big to do a tandem. And so I went up and I said, okay, well, I want to do a tandem. And they're like, well, how much do you weigh? And I said, oh, right around 200 pounds. They're like, which is it, 200 or 201? And I went, oh, shit. Um, all right, I'm about 240. So that's the reason why I didn't get to do a tandem. Luckily, the guys that I went with, they all did their tandems and then they waited for me to go through the AFF level
Nice.
one. And we all got
Let's
into
go.
skydiving after that. But yeah, my experience was very similar. Carl,
Yeah.
just to kind of give you an idea, some of the things that Jack has been talking about. I don't know if you noticed him, but when he said he was doing his practice touches, he went like this, or is it, yeah, this way? And when that's part of your level one is, or whenever you deploy your parachute, if you're going to move this hand, you got to compensate with your other hand. Otherwise, you could go into a spin or something like that. That's the reason when he was talking about it, he was doing this. But the other thing, Jack, for me, and this was every single one of my jumps, is Carl, there's a thing called a slider that comes down your strings, your ropes on that. And so when you deploy your parachute, you're back into your stable position. And then I'm always looking up at that slider going, come on, man, come on, man, come on, man. Because once that slider kind of comes down, you you basically that's a sign that you've got a really good canopy above you. And all right, I'm going to be okay now. You don't have any problems to worry about. So I don't know. Do you get that same thing? Are you that few seconds where you're waiting for that slider to come down? That's always was the
Sure.
sticky point for me.
Yeah, for sure. And we call it a snivel. And so as you pull up your parachute, the whole point of that slider is to slow down the parachute opening. That way it doesn't really, jerk you and create a harsh opening that could, whiplash you or something like that, as well as damage the equipment. So the slider, it does as it says, slides down the lines. And as it's sliding down, it's allowing the parachute to fully inflate. But before and as it's sliding down, we call that the snivel. And sometimes the snivel lasts a little bit longer than you want. Your parachute's already out in the opening, you're looking up, and you're still falling a little faster than you want. Sometimes it can take 500 to 1,000 feet even for your parachute to fully inflate after you have pulled the pilot chute.
So what I'm sure canopies have improved. I when I was jumping the three ring system was already there, which was I know a big safety factor. I flew a PD 230. When I bought my own rig, I had a PD 230, a Performance Design 230, and I think that was about right for me at that stage. I'd probably need something a little bigger now because I put a few pounds on. But what kind of canopy do you fly?
Yeah, I'm flying a Horizon 150. So it is a 7 cell versus a 9 cell, and that just means how many inlets it has able to take air in. The 7 cells are a little bit more stable, which are great for wingsuiting. The 9 cells are a little bit more performance based, but yeah, I'm flying a 150 square foot parachute. And yeah, I'll probably go to 135 pretty soon. But for the most part, the big changes was going from the rounds to the now rectangular parachutes,
Yeah.
and that's like
Can you imagine the jumping with a round parachute? I
no,
mean, I
those
can't
guys were
imagine.
crazy. Yeah, those
That's
guys were
crazy.
crazy for
So
sure.
what kind of forward speed do you get with your canopy when you're fully
Once it's
open?
open, it's probably like 20, 25 miles per hour.
Okay, pretty
Depending
fast,
on
yeah.
obviously your headwind will slow down your ground speed, but
Yeah.
yeah, for the most part, right around there.
Can I
Well,
ask another rookie or observer question? So from your either your tandem jump, and maybe we got to go two ways on this. If I go tandem to free fall by myself, or the 8 hour, what's the cost? Like if I said, all right, you guys have fired me up, I want to jump.
Yeah.
What am I
Well,
out? Am I out 5 grand, 10 grand, 500? Like
no.
what's the pricing
yeah,
today?
it adds up for sure. It's a higher cost entry, and then once you get integrated to this sport, you have your license and your own equipment, then it becomes much more manageable. But the free fall program, all the way to getting your license, so let's call it the first 25 jumps, could cost anywhere, around 4 to 5 grand. And then you're adding equipment on top of that, which is gonna, be similar, 4 to 5 grand at least for an entry level parachute system, helmet, altimeter. The gear never stops. Like you're always constantly buying new gear. It's like the new iPhone that comes out. You always want the new shiny technology and equipment, and it has developed pretty fast over these years. There's some,
Expense wise, it's a lot like golf, Carl. I mean, you've got a
yeah.
lot of the same kind of expenses. So if someone did want to take up the sport, it's an expensive sport-ish,
Yeah.
sort of like golf. But once you got your stuff, I don't know how it is anymore. But we called them lift tickets back then. But I think, man, maybe it was 18 bucks for a lift ticket, but that's when you have your own gear and all that kind of stuff. So once you get into it, it's relatively inexpensive to do a jump. But what would a tandem? I mean, most people they do one jump, they do a tandem and have that experience. And I respect everybody who does it. And a lot of people once is enough. But what's a
So
tandem run these days,
like
Jack?
250,
Yeah, I
depending
was
on
gonna
where
say a
you're
couple
going.
$100.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So to
that's not too
test
bad.
me out, just make sure I'm
That's
not gonna,
right.
die of a heart attack. 200-300 bucks, I'm good. And if I want to go all in, I'm 10 to 15 grandish, right?
If you're going to go all the way and become an actual skydiver
Yes.
like
Yeah.
Jack is, yeah, you're going to spend a little bit of money. I mean, I bought my gear, my gear I bought used. And I don't know that I spent that much, but it was still a good canopy. And when I was done skydiving, I was able to sell it to somebody else who got to enjoy it. So
Yeah.
Well, and
there's ways around it.
the reason I wanted to kind of get that out in the open because I've got some expensive hobbies myself. Hunting is one, like you said, Jack. Equipment never goes away. Golf, as Stan alluded to, although I've been, because I'm not a scratch golfer, I haven't spent, but I just bought new clubs and it was, or new irons a year or two ago, and it was getting close to $1,000. And hockey is another one of mine that I've been playing my whole life. I mean, now you could buy a nice pair of skates back in the day for $100. Now they're 1,000, 1,200. You know what I mean? So everything's relative. I mean, sticks now are carbon fibered, and they're $200 for one stick. I can buy a dozen sticks. So it's all changing. But what's interesting about what you two are talking about, and Jack, what you do daily is it's one of the very few sports that maybe other than piloting or helicopter, like you make a mistake, you screw up, you're dead. This is a whole different animal here than my hobbies.
Jack, I'm going to let you respond to what Carl just said, and then I'm going to
Yeah.
respond to what Carl just said.
No, he's totally right. It's definitely a higher risk activity. There's probably more people who pass away skydiving per year than golfing. I don't know the specific numbers, but I would assume that could be accurate for sure. A basic skydive's pretty dang safe. Falling belly to earth, the tandem skydive is very safe nowadays with today's technology and the standards that the United States Parachute Association has led for the drop zones to make sure that they're up to par. So I would say that, yeah, it's definitely a high risk activity that you have to pay very close attention to detail on and make sure that you're getting in a good routine, make sure that your head's in a good space every time before you jump, you're clear and focused, not too many outside distractions. And you want to put the right people around you. You want to put the right people who's making good decisions as well that you can try to mirror or learn from. But when you put all those combined, I think the risk drops significantly, especially when we look at, some of the other risky activities that we all take on in our daily life, like hopping on
Yeah.
the freeway, which I see every day in Southern California
Yeah.
here. And I get more scared on that freeway than I do falling through the air, I'll tell you that.
I'm going to mirror you, Jack. So, Carl, here would be my response to that. Yeah, of course, you're jumping out of an airplane. So it's a risky thing to do. But as Jack said, the equipment nowadays is so good and so sophisticated that for the average person who's going to do a tandem, you're in good hands. The person who's strapped to you is a very, very good skydiver. I know it used to be they had to have over 200 jumps and at least one unintentional cutaway. Is that still for tandem instructor?
500, yeah.
500 now. Okay. So they're very, very good skydivers. But Carl, back when I was doing this, I used to subscribe to a magazine called Parachutist. I don't know if it's still around or not, but every month they'd have incident reports where they would report where people got injured or killed skydiving. And I'm going to say in the 90 percentile range of the people who had accidents, it was human error. It
Yeah.
wasn't that their canopy didn't work, or it wasn't that something like it wasn't almost never was it the equipment or anything. It was them doing something that they should have known better. I'll give you a couple of examples just from my memory. But you're under canopy and you're flying along and there's your friend and he's under canopy. Well, you're if you're being a goofball, you want to go close to your friend, which is stupid because you should stay away from each other because okay, I'm gonna go over to Carl and hey Carl, what's going on? Next thing you know, you only got 1,000 feet and your canopies get twisted up and you both drop like a stone. So they shouldn't have been doing that. Another thing, at least back in the day, that I saw a lot of incident reports was something that was called a hook turn.
Yeah.
Is that still the correct term for it, Jack?
Yeah, it's kind of changed to swooping, I would say is
Okay,
the
swooping.
term.
But basically, Carl, what this is like a guy like me, I never played games. I just I would do some fun stuff, some backflips and different things when I was doing free fall, but nothing very extreme. But when you're coming in to land at the drop zone, there's usually a windsock there. We called it eating the carrot. You want to go into the wind. You've got your canopy fully open, so you're going as fast as your canopy will take you forward speed. And then at the last second, you just pull your two toggles down. And if you're doing it correctly, it's like stepping off of a step. I mean, you can
Yeah.
land just as light as a feather. But what really experienced skydivers would do, and this is where people would have accidents, they weren't ready to do this. They would call it a hook turn, where instead of pulling on a riser, they would, or on a toggle, they would grab the riser and pull it down. So they're going with the wind, and then they pull that riser all the way down to like their knee. And basically, it just inverts them where their canopy's now under them for a second, and then they come in and they do a landing. And most of the time, they're literally just inches from the ground. In fact, a lot of drop zones have a little long pool of water. Well, they'll just kind of drag their toe through that water. It's really cool to watch. But if you don't know what you're doing, you could hook turn yourself and just slam yourself right into the ground. So I was never even close to even thinking about trying something like that. But those are the kinds of things that most of the time, if someone gets hurt or killed skydiving, it's they're doing something that
Yeah,
that they probably shouldn't have been doing.
for sure.
Jack, do you back that?
Yeah, 100%. That's why those reports are actually pretty valuable for us to all learn from previous mistakes and
Sure.
make sure that we don't repeat them in the community. So, yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely usually pushing the limits and, a too fast of a progression or not the right mentorship or simple mistakes can definitely cause a big twist into the results and create a really bad situation. So yeah, I would say for the most part, it's self-caused. It's not equipment based anymore. The equipment's definitely had a lot of advancements where that alone is pretty safe, but it's user error
Yeah.
for the most part.
What's cool about that, though, Stan, what you just said, and there's a book out there, Jack, I think you'd like. It's called Black Box Thinking. And it's really compares piloting aircraft,
Hmm.
and the law industry and the medical industry. More focused on the medical industry, but what parallels what you guys have done or are doing, Jack, today is everything is shared. All the errors, all the mistakes, everything. So everyone learns from it. That's what pilots do. That's why there's almost no commercial crashes anymore. Because the second there's an error, that bulletin goes out to the thousands of pilots and they learn, right?
Yeah,
Whereas lawyers, they don't ever share because they don't want to get sued, and medical, they never share. So we never learn. So all these, I mean, I think last time I looked, public medical error deaths in the US annually were like 500,000 to a million because they don't share data. They won't share
Yeah.
like, hey, Stan, you're on this medication. You shouldn't be on this one because if you mix them, you're going to die. So it's just crazy how different industries do that. So it's encouraging to
for
hear
sure.
about in the skydiving industry that they do
Yeah.
share that so y'all can learn so you don't have to hit the ground.
100%. Yeah, that's right. And even more so in like the base jumping community, we're definitely even a smaller community of skydivers basically that take parachuting to buildings, antennas, span, and earth. That's what BASE, it's an acronym. And so any of those
We were trying to
objects,
figure that out again
yeah,
yesterday. I
yeah.
knew, I thought I wasn't sure if it was buildings or bridges. Bridges,
Yeah,
uh,
building, and so
antennas,
span, the S is actually bridges. And so yeah,
bridges. Okay.
ASE, but any of those objects, that's a whole new different type of parachuting, and it does
Uh-huh.
play a smaller niche within the skydiving community. And so that group, I really got to commend
Yeah.
that group on putting our heads together. Anytime there's a situation or mistake or learnings to come from, there's always a big long discussion on in that community.
Well, let's move to the you crazy people who do base jumping. And I say that with love and
I know
admiration.
you do,
But
Stan.
this is a whole nother thing. So just for people who aren't familiar with skydiving, I would usually jump out at an altitude of 12,500 feet. That'd give you roughly 60 seconds of free fall. You open your canopy. I started my sequence probably around 4,500 feet or so. Plenty of time to fix any problems if there's anything. And I never did anything too extreme. But where base jumping, which was we're going to talk about with Jack next, and these wingsuits, you could be jumping off of something that most of us would have already had our canopy open
Yeah,
thousands of feet above. So the margin for error increases
for sure.
just exponentially. I mean, what's the lowest height you've ever started from?
Yeah, about 130 feet. So
That's insanity.
yeah, it is. It's a different game altogether for sure. I mean, you learn how to do a static line jump, which means you're as soon as you're pushing off that, base object, your
You're
parachute
open.
is extracting from your container there. And yeah, 130 feet was small, but it's still plenty of time to be able, get the parachute open, fly it, and do a full flare and have a nice soft landing. That's about as low as I'll go. There are people who do 190-foot base jumps as well. Not a huge desire for me. And then base jumps does get as big as, terminal velocity base. So off of the big wall cliffs and, the European Alps or other places around the world where there's three, even almost 4,000-foot cliffs where that's like a third of a skydive, where you are actually getting to a point where you reach terminal velocity before you pull your parachute, but it's still obviously much lower compared to skydiving terms.
Yeah. And I would have back in the day, maybe a cliff that was 3,000 feet, but I think where you got to add into this factor too is you got to try and launch yourself off of this cliff and have enough flying ability to make sure you don't just turn around and fly right back into the cliff again. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's just another level. But I want to talk about the wingsuits. I would have loved, in fact, if I were to ever go one more time, we talk about it with one of my buddies. Not that I would do a lot of the wingsuit stuff that you do, but I would love to just jump out at 12.5, have a wingsuit to kind of fly around in without doing, the extreme low altitude stuff, just to have that gliding. Yeah,
Yeah.
what's your forward speed when you've got a wingsuit on, Jack?
Oh man, that's a good question. I bet you're going, in between closer to the free fall speed, probably over 120 plus miles per hour forward with your glide ratio. And it all depends on obviously like your angle of attack. Same thing as airplanes and the wing. Your shoulder and wingspan becomes your fixed wing, so to speak. And so you dive down, you pick up more speed. As you flatten out, you get closer to your stall speed. And so it's all about like learning where that, perfect spot is to get a good glide ratio, fast enough where you have great control over the wing, have good flare power when you need it to actually, increase. And just like flaring a canopy, you do the same thing with a wingsuit before you pull your parachute. You slow down, go, present a lot of surface area to the wind to help stop that forward speed, and then pull the parachute and have it pop open. But it's definitely one of the most fun, if not the most fun thing I've done in the air. It's like with a group of friends, you're basically your own aircraft up there. You're flying with 10 people around you in formation, right? Some
Uh,
people floating up and down, flipping to their back. You'll dip a shoulder and you're banking left. It's so fun. So wingsuiting, I can't speak highly enough. I've had the pleasure of partnering with a really cool company called El Bandito Yankee Tequila, and they have yeah, sponsored me on a wingsuit branded for them, and it's a beautiful design too. So I'm looking forward to continuing that relationship with El Bandito. And yeah, we have some exciting stuff coming out, not just in wingsuiting, but the rest of the parachute game.
So Jack, who wins the race? You at 150 pounds or Stan at two something? Who's winning that race? Does that
Ooh.
body weight have any
it's a
bearing?
good question.
Yeah, yeah, up to a certain extent. With like wingsuiting, it's more about, the angle of attack there. And so, yeah, I would say it's experience and knowing, yeah, how to get that forward momentum and get that precise angle of attack to maximize your speed versus the weight. That's going to be more important.
And Stan's
Yeah,
also kind of a Sasquatch, so his wingspan's probably about 10 feet because
Yeah.
he's 6'5", so that might also help.
That could help. That could help actually. Yeah, bigger wingsuits. Yeah, you can definitely
it did make
manipulate
a
the wind.
significant difference with what I was doing, Carl. I was jumping with, guys that were smaller than me, and I don't know, I was never really good at relative work trying to stay like this.
Right.
Uh, head to head, just in basic skydiving. Most of the time, if we would let go of each other, I tended to drop a little bit, but not significantly. Once you hit terminal velocity, 120, 125 miles an hour, that's about what you're going to fall no matter your size or weight. But I mean, going forward in a wingsuit, maybe it would make a difference. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's funny as we're talking here, I'm literally looking out at the stratosphere, which is 1,149 feet. And that's my last big adventure. I was telling Stan the other day. They have that cable thing. So dear friend of ours, for my birthday, took me on a surprise adventure, and I literally we pull up to stratosphere. I'm like, oh no, and this was way after my adventure seasons of life. So I get out there on the you get the jumpsuits. They give you like full aerial suits. There's like 30 seconds of training, like because you're strapped in pretty good. But you are free. I mean, I got out to the edge, and everyone's kind of cocky, and I'm like, I think I can do this. I get out to and I freeze, you guys, and I look back, and there's like 100 people watching me, like go go, and I'm like, I'm just gonna die, and I just went for it. But I mean, that free fall of just 10 seconds, maybe 5 seconds, I don't even know, and then you're kind
That
of
would
caving
scare me
down.
more than jumping out of an airplane.
Oh
I'd have a harder time doing that than jumping
yeah,
out of a plane, me personally.
yeah,
Yeah.
Too close to the ground. But Jack, that's like, okay, stratosphere, no problem.
yeah. But
It's
he can
nice
do.
fun.
Wingsuit on.
He'd probably just
Jack's
cut the
jumping
cables
off
and
the
base jump it.
stratosphere. He's flying that wingsuit right down the Las
Yeah.
Vegas Strip,
Yeah,
lands over there by Circuit or over by New York somewhere.
yeah, it'd be a long one.
Man, I just think that's cool, Jack. Carl, here's another thing that, well, I would love to do this, Jack, but when we were at the drop zones, Carl, we called it tracking, but let's say you and I were flying like this and it's time for us to deploy our chutes. You want to turn and track away from each other so you're not going to be tangling up. And so the more you would get your legs straight. The straighter your legs, the more forward speed the forward you would go. So you'd kind of make a little tunnel for yourself right here and kind of grab the back of your parachute and you'd track away, which was just so much fun. but you'd pick up some speed. But what was cool is if you were on the ground and there were people that were skydiving like that and tracking, they sounded like little jets. You could hear them doing that. So, Jack, is that the way it is with those air suits? If someone were on the ground watching you guys fly by, I'll bet
Yeah.
you they hear it much like a jet going by or something,
Oh
right?
yeah, it's really cool to see, and wingsuiting is basically a form of tracking. So the way you kind of skydiving, it's all about to turn skydiving into flying for me. It's all about like finding ways to manipulate the wind correctly around you, and so creating that angle of attack, the surface area that you want hitting the wind and then finding how that can brush off your body to be able to push you forward. And wingsuiting's all the same with that, but it definitely can sound like a fighter jet. It's pretty dang cool. There's some cool videos out there of people on hikes up mountains and a wingsuiter come flying by them not more than 10 feet off the ground. And the speed
Uh,
and the noise is like something
uh,
out of this world. So it's pretty crazy.
some of
That
those
is crazy.
videos, man, I'm like, that just takes so much guts and so much skill to be
Yeah,
able to fly through those tiny little openings and you got
sure.
to know what you're doing. Well, Jack, man, I appreciate you so much for
Yeah,
coming on board and sharing some of this with us. Carl, you want to do the three questions real quick?
Sure. Before I ask that, Jack, I've got a coworker who that Stan knows, Teresa. She lives in Lake Elsinore. She's not a skydiver. She's right there in that neck of the woods. But have you run into this other channel that I've been following for many, many years, and we hope to emulate certain aspects of their community. Have you run into Amar from Yes Theory? I know he did a lot of training out by you guys.
I have not yet.
Okay. Yeah, look him up. Yes Theory or Seek Discomfort is there two kind of brandings,
Cool.
and he did all his training out there, and then he did some bungee jumping out of a helicopter with Will
Nice.
Smith, and so he's got some cool stuff. But anyway, all right, so we
I'll look
wrap up
into it.
our rapid fire with most of our guests as best we can. So, being only 30 years old, you might have a little smaller window of experience here. But what was your first car you ever owned?
First car I ever owned, I was working for my dad in construction, and he gave me the work truck. It was a Chevy Silverado. Loved it.
Yes,
Nice.
yes, good one.
Yeah.
I love my Chevy Silverados. Had a few. What was your favorite car that you've owned so far?
Okay, so this background, I work for Rivian Automotive, EV.
Ooh,
Yeah, EV tech startup. So we're cranking out R1Ss and R1Ts. I currently own a R1T all electric truck, and it is incredible. The instant torque you get, the storage solutions, like it's definitely the best car I've ever owned. Soft plugged Rivian. Love the cars. They keep
all right. Well,
crushing
now
the
you just
concrete
opened
part.
up a whole can of worms for another
Yeah.
episode. We'll
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
get
we got to have you on for another
Uh-oh.
episode now, Jack.
Yeah,
You
let's
don't
do
know
it.
what you just started there. We're
Let's
gonna
do
have to have
it.
you on again.
I
all
love it.
right. And then, if budget was no concern, you could have anything you want. Maybe you got it in the Rivian, but let's throw it out there.
Yeah.
What was your dream car?
Oh, that's a good question. I think time and place for everything. I've always been a big Porsche fan, so Porsche 911, Turbo S is definitely like one of the ones that's always come up. And then I've been a big fan of Mercedes as well. I love the, boxier SUV. So Mercedes G-Wagon would be, if I could pair those two combos, the
Yeah.
weekend cruiser with the 911 and then the everyday driver on the G-Wagon, I'm a happy camper.
Before I get to
Big shock
Stan's,
that a wingsuit diver wants a fast car. I know
yeah.
that's just how could
Who would
we
have
have
thought?
guessed?
Toyota Sienna. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Stan, before we get to your words of wisdom question, Jack, are you still with Rivian?
I am. Yep.
Okay. Have you met AJ
AJ.
or RJ? Sorry, RJ.
RJ. I
Yes.
have. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Founder of, so I
Yeah.
live in Chicago and I've been down to the factory in Bloomington, took some pictures out there. I actually tried for my day job, I tried to get in there to meet him because we do a lot of funding and financing for Tesla. Did over $1 billion with them last year. So we're trying to get Rivian, so we'll take that offline. But anyway, all right, fire away, Stan.
All
Super
right.
cool.
So last question, Jack. If you could go back in time and talk to a young 15, 16-year-old Jack, what words of wisdom would you give yourself? Or some people just like they kind of live by a certain saying or whatever. But yeah, what are your words of wisdom that you want to pass on to the audience?
Whew, words of wisdom. Specifically looking at myself as a 16-year-old, if I got to have a conversation with 16-year-old Jack, I'd probably just tell him to keep at it. Like a lot of what I've done in life, I've tried to manifest and stay true to. Like I said earlier in the episode, I always knew I wanted to get into skydiving. I always knew that this type of lifestyle was something that I wanted to focus on and have be a core part of my life. And at times it seemed impossible. I didn't know anyone in the industry or know anyone in the sport. And I had to, get outside of my comfort zone to just try new things and see where it goes. So I would say like the most important thing would be stay committed to it. You know what you want. So make it happen, manifest it, and don't give up on it because it's right around the corner. And I'm super stoked to be continuing flying right now. And I think 16-year-old me would look at my air sports experience and be pretty stoked about the way it went. So I would just say
Uh,
focus on it and keep at it. And what you want is right around the corner.
Very good, man. Appreciate you so much taking time out of your day. I hope you have some good jumps. How many are you going to do today?
Aiming for probably just two or three
Two or
afternoon
three.
sesh. Yeah, should be
Nice,
good.
nice. Well, have a great time. Be safe. Thank you so much for
Absolutely.
joining us.
Yeah, same.
Carl,
Thanks.
always good to see you, buddy. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this edition of What Drives You. And as we always like to say, remember, be good humans to each other. Talk to you next time.